Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, right? It's not just one single group. And in that sense, you can get management to buy in, you can get technical people to buy in, you can get developers, business application people. So it's not a hard thing to talk about.
Welcome to the Tekitok podcast, where we embark on a journey through the ever-evolving realm of SAP and IT operations, automation, artificial intelligence, and cloud technologies. Whether you're an IT professional, a business leader, or simply curious about emerging technologies and industry insights, our episodes will be your compass in navigating this dynamic landscape with real-world experiences. Join us as we demystify complex concepts, explore innovative trends, and engage in stimulating dialogue with industry experts to empower you with insights that matter. The views expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the opinions of their respective companies. The producer of this Tekitok podcast assumes no responsibility for any public content, ideas, or recommendations shared.
Tekitok podcast. And Lynn, this is October Security Awareness Month. What a great topic for our conversation. You know, in this month, at least all the listeners are probably busy patching their systems, at least in October, because it's a Security Awareness Month.
Yeah, they better be aware, right?
They better be aware of that. They better be patching their systems, or otherwise the security folks will be really on top of them, saying, "Hey, you are out of compliance. You need to patch. You need to patch." Patching security is always a challenge, and they come very frequent. When they come, we gotta patch very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly, right?
Yeah, in fact, we had a survey recently, and we had like cybersecurity awareness survey, most customer response. Actually, the top out of all of the response, 44% people said that the majority of how to keep best practice about cybersecurity posture is actually regular patching. 44%. That's ahead of like perimeter security, which is the other one that they felt was important. And then, of course, the other one is employee training and awareness, all that stuff. You know, social kind of hack and all that thing. But yeah, so patching is on top of the list, and that's it. That's good to know, because you know, obviously, vulnerabilities are there for hackers to exploit. So this is the right topic.
And especially when they get published. Those vulnerabilities get published, then it's even worse, because now people are aware of them and now they can be exploited.
Yeah, so I'd say the internet, the age nowadays is because cybersecurity moves so fast, right? As soon as you find a vulnerability, all the guys that are not even computer wizard can hack it, because they can go out to the dark web and start finding $5 for this hack. You can try to get across the internet and see which one is not patched, and there you go, you got it. So the cost of hacking has gone down a lot, because the ability for information to spread and then vulnerability to be exploited. Right?
And even if I have my systems behind a firewall, because I'm not using the portal, I'm not connected to the internet, hey, I feel secure. Why should I patch my system if it's behind a firewall? How can somebody get to it, or, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what social engineering is about, right? So social engineering is about you inadvertently, or employees inadvertently, letting in somebody because they felt, hey, you know, I forgot my card today. I'm in a hurry. I locked myself out. Could you help me? You know, they could do all kinds of very, very sophisticated social engineering to be inside your network. In which case, if they have some access to some console, some system, and they know what to do, they could start the hack, right? So, and sometimes they said that most cybersecurity incidents happen not immediately that the hackers come in and hack something. It's not as obvious. They could be in your system for a long time beforehand and just laying low and monitoring and and waiting and doing something, and then they strike, right? So it's well orchestrated, it's very sophisticated, it's timed. So don't think that just because you're not exposing system to outside that you don't have exposure. That's definitely I think a myth.
Yeah, exactly. If our listeners and our customers and community is, we gotta keep the systems patched regularly. SAP, for instance, provides monthly patches, security patch. That means that in a month, you need to test and you need to roll that out to production before the next one comes. Because otherwise,
Right.
you're never
They
catching
keep
up.
coming.
So some second Tuesday of the month that they come,
Yeah,
or the
actually,
first Tuesday, whatever that is, it's a fixed schedule. And you better catch up and keep up with SAP, because otherwise you're always going to be behind. If it takes 3 months for you to test and roll that out, well, then for 3 months you are exposed because the vulnerabilities are well known by anybody. And,
public
you're in a
domain
bad situation.
information. Yeah. So we keep. You see that every month there's a SAP Security Patch Day. You can see second Tuesday of every month. You can see the long list of stuff. So we keep a calendar where we're tracking. So of course, in between the month, if there's some critical comes out, you're gonna get some security notes that's highlighted red. But at minimum, for best practices, at minimum you should be having a cadence, and so the cadence should be, let's say, a monthly, right? And you can see here, Security Patch Day, September 2023, right? You see all the vulnerabilities, you see what affected, whether you're running core NetWeaver or Java or business object or a massive kernel that affects so many versions. Likelihood of having something in your environment that's, let's say, maybe this month nothing, but next month, yes, definitely. But either way, you have to make it a practice, a religious practice, to keep on top of this and make sure that you are using some regular scheduling to check and flag and say, okay, I definitely this month I need to patch because this impact my whatever versions I have, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I'm a big believer of standard operating procedures, right? Something repeatable, something that the timing, you have a schedule, you have certain automation, knowledge on how to do, and set up that cadence that you can repeat that process over and over. And there's always going to be something weird going on, but definitely getting that process set up from downloading, testing, and rolling out to production as much as possible to be automated, because otherwise you're going to have to spend hours and hours doing manual work every single month. Not only the risk of something not going well, it's just the effort and the cost of doing that manual work if you have a complex environment.
Absolutely. I think the complexity comes in multiple stages. So definitely we know that, okay, now you have to check regularly and also respond to urgent, high priority vulnerability. But now you need to identify from a monitoring standpoint your stack, right? So your application stack, your database stack, and then your operating system layer. So there's like at least 3 layers we're talking about. And again, we excluding some things like network, maybe have routers and switches and whatever, but let's assume that's taken care of by core infrastructure. But in the software world, now you have this 3 layer at least that you need to patch. So the cadence might be different. So database might be less frequent, but SAP application layer is very complex. There may be more frequent patching needs. And then at the OS level is amazing. Every single day you go check something, there's a patch. So that's the important to take those 3 layers. So how do we recommend folks to, like, okay, now I got to patch regularly. How to keep up with it? So we published some paper on like things that SAP has for our listeners. So obviously SAP level has a kernel update. So we're talking about software, right? Of course, there's inside the application, we have obviously things like the ABAP, or those are, we're not going to talk about in this case, because those are more like support packs you need to import, all that. That tend to be less cybersecurity exposure than the software outside. So for instance, software outside runs where you can penetrate, you can, break
Right.
some level of security. Inside is more protected from user security standpoint, right? So not to say that it's not as significant, but let's say for kernel, how do you automate pushing a kernel out that maybe you have a system environment with 5 production system and 25 supporting systems? That's a huge amount. And each of these production systems might have, 5 app servers each. So you're talking individually, each app server needs to be patched. Each system needs to be patched. So we talk about what is a kernel, what is an operation. So I won't go into too much detail. The blog is out there. But being able to patch the kernel and automate it means that you can say, oh, I got a monthly patch. I got 50 virtual machines, no problem. I take them in 3 waves, and I can do sandbox training or whatever first, and have it burn in for a week maybe, and then I roll out to QA, and maybe a couple of days later to production. So this automation talk about our ability to say, heck, a kernel has a vulnerability, identify what next kernel you need to be on, and simply say, okay, I need to be on, I'm on the patch level this one, and patch level 27 needs to be put into the system. So there's actually this concept that we did wrote up about this whole kernel update automation stuff revolve around being able to understand core software, how the manufacturer produces the updates, what patch level you need to be on. So this level of complication, most users kind of like, I want to patch, but I don't understand all of this, like understanding all the releases and what to download, where to put it, what system, how to implement it, all that. Automation takes away that fear. And I think the fear of doing it because maybe you don't have skill resource, maybe you don't have enough resource, or maybe you don't have enough downtime, and there's just too many systems, that gets away from typical environment that is not addressing this core need. So what we're doing is saying, in patching, you need to first of all identify, you have to stage the software somewhere centrally. You got to pick what you're going to update to. Like, for instance, there's lots of SAP download stuff, and we can manage that. Actually, there's a solution for us to centralize the download as well, and then stage it, and then do the whole testing, implement the rolling out of that. So kernel patching is a very interesting topic, obviously.
Lin, as you're going through this, I'm thinking, the automation reduces the effort, so I get more efficient in doing the patching. It also less errors I can have during the process. But also, if I can accelerate the speed of patching, I will minimize the time that I have different versions of kernel throughout my landscape.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it takes me a month from development or the sandbox all the way to production, during that month, I'm running different versions of SAP kernels. And how do I support that? How do I replicate? It's just having different versions, it's really not ideal. So the faster we can go from dev or the lowest environment all the way to production, the fastest we can go, because we know that we've done all the testing and all that stuff, that then the better my ability to support the production environment.
You're on the good point there, because yes, let's say we know a monthly patching recommendation from SAP from the security. So if it takes you a month, as soon as you're done, you got to do another one, and like that month, then you may be let's say the next one you're not automated, you're just falling behind because something else came up during the month, right? This happens to everybody, like operations, like, oh yeah, we got to patch, but hey, something else high priority came up, there was performance problem, blah blah blah, and then you end up like, oh man, I'm going to skip this month now. I got 2 months. Now you may have different releases of kernel across the board. And if you have some performance issue that may be related to a kernel, now you don't have the same environment to test and validate. So you're spot on there. I think that's the ability to speed up, to minimize the vulnerability, but also to address that your lifecycle management has to keep software layers at the same pace. So the next thing, now you know that you're patching a single system. We have a way to automate that, obviously. You can patch the single system, but what if now that system is like really important? Maybe it's your finance, core, S4HANA, running all your 80% of your business, and you can't have downtime. Maybe you have only 10 minutes of downtime. Whatever it is, the business is very important.
I think
there
what
is a
happens a lot of times with those windows is that
Uh-huh.
I may have like half a day once a month, but there is so much to do during that half a day, so much because I only have half a day.
Yeah.
That I run out of time with half a day to bring the
So what
system
happened
down
then?
and put this back.
Yeah. So SAP has this concept called rolling kernel switch, which we'll talk about next. This is very interesting because it's to address the pain point of having a very important system with a bunch of application servers, some of them running batch, some of them running interactive users, some of them running, remote connection interfaces, and then some of them are, updates. So the system can be fairly complex. There's this concept called rolling kernel switch or rolling kernel update, which allows SAP to update one app server at a time, and this is how it works, right? So we have, let's say in a typical SAP NetWeaver system, you might have the core central services, and then you have the NQ, which stores up the update, and then you have multiple app servers, right? Those app servers we call them secondary application servers, one or more. Typically in production, you at least want at least two for redundancy and workload balancing. But let's say now this system, entire system, you don't have an ability to just stop them all, do an update and bring it back, because maybe there's 1,000 users and hundreds of batch jobs and lots of things going on, and it takes forever. So this concept of rolling kernel switch is that SAP allows you to stop one component at a time, update, restart, again, do the same thing, update, restart. So this switching allows to roll through, and that as soon as one is done, it restarts, and then you do the next one, and then users can log on to the other one, and jobs can continue to be dispatched and updates. So it assumes that you have certain architecture to handle this. Obviously, you have to have multiple app servers, you have to have the right settings in parameters, but you also need to have distributed, batch queues, updates across your landscape. You can't be all centralized on one box, and then if that guy restart, everybody else stuck, right? So this certain things
Right.
but once assuming you have that layer, then you could actually use this to minimize the patching downtime.
So you need to have an infrastructure ready to do the rolling patch. Obviously, without the right architecture, forget about this. And I'm sure there's options there on how to really manage by time, or how to bring the servers down securely so there's no jobs running and no users, you take them offline, etc. So it could be a long process if you have many servers and you are running 24-hour operations to bring one or two down at a time and things like that. But at least you're minimizing the downtime, which I think is great.
So let me go into a little bit more detail, right? So say you want to use this method. You could do this manually. Of course, you get logged on and you know the procedure. Actually fairly complex, but if you know the procedure, you could do manually. But what we actually can do is automate this rolling kernel switch as well. So this is automating within the system, obviously multiple servers, but we can automate rolling out this kernel patching technique, allowing you to essentially basically do a patching without having to manually switch, just because it's just like if they allow you to switch 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but you have to do manually, it still burns time. And then if you need to do this across all your stack at the same time, orchestration can help you do that. So we actually implemented this in a automation way that we can roll out rolling kernel switch, leveraging SAP's architecture as well as our orchestration in the rolling kernel switch, so you can do multiple levels of implementation and across multiple nodes. So anyway, I won't go into too much detail and bore our listeners. There's other things, but essentially doing this, as you know, you have to have a manual run book. If you have never done it before, you do it manually, make sure it works. But if it works, you should automate it, because then after automating it, you can say, oh, just go after the system and one by one.
So that's great on the SAP level. How about the database? How can we then, from a database, do we have similar rolling mechanism if I have a highly available database cluster and so on, can I still do that? Or
yeah, it's more complex, but yes. So if you are architecting the system for high availability and resiliency, you have to factor in not just unexpected downtime. You also have to factor in planned downtime. So patching is one of those planned downtime, right? So in the most basic sense, cluster database system, and I'll go into a little bit. So we do handle automation for database, software, patching, installation, all of that. So you can see, this is an example, right? We just did the S4HANA automated deployment, which involved installing the software and patching it. Similar process. Let's say you can do it on one node. You can do kind of, you can see that we orchestrate like everything from software copying, mounting, installing, running, and then installing HANA and all that. All these actually, you can bundle SAM's installation, you can patch it. Now, you can see that something like automated patching, you can see the logs in the system that we patch automatically, the database up to a certain release, right? And you can see what components or, so assume you do this one already, you have versions. Now, if you're in a environment where you can't bring down the whole system and bring it back in like less than 15 minutes, what you do is you build a cluster. So you'd have a primary HANA node, let's say. It could be Oracle as well. But let's say primary HANA, and then you have a secondary HANA. What you can do is you can say, hey, I'm gonna patch my secondary system. So I'm a high level. You can replicate data from a lower patch to a higher patch, but you can't do the other way around. So this secondary system actually gets this treatment first from automation, patch, right? As soon as it's patched, because it's a secondary, you can initiate a takeover so that it becomes the primary, right? Which means all of your traffic swings over, and then you can patch secondary. So then,
so I guess that this either you have time and you can bring the systems down, or you have money and you build a cluster. What? Yeah. If you don't have time and don't have money, then you're in trouble.
So then yeah, like it's that. Is either time or money or effort or whatever it is that you need, like quality. I want this thing delivered in this time, and it costs less than this much, and no, you can't have all three, right? You want pick your poison.
Definitely you can't. And I think the key here is best practice is to stay up to date with the application database or OS. With all the patches, security patches we're talking, because it's security month, cybersecurity month awareness. So to keep that up to date, leverage the tool to automate as much as you can the deployment, and hopefully the rolling deployment of that over through your production infrastructure in a way that you can document and automate over and over and over. And the more you automate, the easier it's going to be for anyone to keep up with the patches.
Yeah, you mentioned OS. Actually, I haven't tackled OS, but your software stack in now, the software application layer, we talked about database a little bit. What if OS? Actually, OS has the most component, because obviously you're talking about the underlying operating system, and you have as many virtual machines as there are supporting your environment. So let's say in a typical customer, medium size, you might have 50 virtual machines that needs to be patched. And those have a lot of vulnerability, because the operating system, the core, that's where the attack is. Kind of like if you're running Windows, there's always security, defender telling you to patch stuff, right? So on Linux, where most commonly a lot of the customer run their SAP workload, we just take this as an example, right? So we can automate the kernel patching of the Linux kernel, that is, right? To automate it means that you identify what your current version running, what is a vulnerability, what version you need to put into. So what we actually orchestrate is the complete current version, compare what you need to do, and then you can confirm, yes, I need to do this patch, right? We have automatic logical comparison that say, okay, if this patch is lower than this, then apply it. But let's say you want to go ahead and patch it, then you basically going to implement an automation rollout across all your VMs. So take, for instance, one SAP system, 10 virtual machine. That's 10 times you need to log on individually if you were doing manually and patching it, right? Instead of that, you can actually go in and say, I want to apply, this kernel, whatever. Do I need to reboot? Not all OS patch needs a reboot. Some of them can be dynamic, but let's say you do need a reboot, etc. We can orchestrate all that so that you can do a reboot of the system. So that's where you say, okay, confirm, do I want to reboot? Yes, we take care of that. So this very simple explanation means that you can take a one-time automation and roll it out across a landscape of systems, and that will basically take care the application, the database, the OS, and essentially you chop down the time. At least I'd say 80% of the time will be saved, because 20% is where you need to do the first initial manual stuff of downloading and testing a patch in a sandbox or whatever development. But rolling it out 80% of the time is safe, because you can deploy automation as part of that. So overall, that's kind of my approach, is that customers need to implement something. I don't care what kind of automation you need to do, but that's the best strategy to save time and roll out, keep going at a regular cadence, take as minimal resources as possible, and be on top of security.
Yeah, stay up to date. Build a strong process to really stay up to date with the security patches. Leverage automation as much as you can. Whatever tool you have, make sure that that tool can help you to automate at certain level, at least the level that you manage, and get that process over and over and over, and making sure that you can just repeat and repeat and repeat all the time, because security patches are going to be coming. I just saw the log of SAP. It's been every month for a long time.
Yeah, and so I think that is right. So just to recap, cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, right? It's not just one single group, and in that sense, you can get management to buy in, you can get technical people to buy in, you can get developers, business application people. So it's not a hard thing to talk about. Everybody understand the need, and so start the dialogue, get patching automation, getting the process defined, identify key personnel, key tools to implement it, and that will be you much better off. And the thief will come and they will like, oh, this guy's up to date, I'm going to the next easy target, right? You don't have to be the fastest swimmer, you just have to be swimming faster than the next guy, so the shark get the next guy and he's full, right?
Because the sharks are coming fast, that's for sure.
Coming fast. Yeah. So I think that's this episode. I think we just touch on some key important concepts about how to stay on top of patching for cybersecurity, as well as being able to automate and make sure that you can roll out minimum effort, no fear. Go do it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us, Lynn and myself, today on October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and the security patching and how to stay up to date with that and be protected. Thank you
very much. We'll have other episodes on security, I'm sure, in the future as well. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.
Bye.